In 1964, Chevron subsidiary Texaco drilled for oil in the Amazon rainforest in eastern Ecuador. Over the next 30 years, Chevron intentionally dumped over 16 billion gallons of toxic waste into streams and rivers, contaminating an area the size of Rhode Island. Even Chevron's own representative confirmed the company's misconduct in Ecuador. Rather than line its hundreds of oil pits with protective materials, rather than remove highly toxic chemicals, and rather than following common industry practices, Chevron chose profits over social responsibility by ignoring industry standards. As a result, the land indigenous communities had lived on for centuries was poisoned, their cultures devastated beyond repair, and the health of the population seriously jeopardized. The area became known as the Amazon Chernobyl. The company clearly knew what it was doing was wrong and ordered its employees to destroy company documents showing the contamination. Almost 20 years ago, 47 individuals representing over 30,000 victims stood up against all odds and drew the line against Chevron's misconduct. These 47 individuals filed suit in the United States, asking nothing more than to be compensated for the wrongs committed against them. Chevron had the opportunity to litigate this matter in the United States, but fought to move the case to Ecuador.
Texaco's position is quite clear. This matter belongs in Ecuador.
Chevron spent nearly 10 years pleading with U.S. courts for the case to be sent to Ecuador, later vowing a lifetime of litigation and a threat to fight the case until hell freezes over. U.S. courts were highly suspicious of Chevron's motivations, and they drew the line against Chevron, requiring that it agree to be sued in Ecuador and promised to pay any judgment against it. Chevron repeatedly promised in writing that it would abide by any Ecuadorian court ruling. A trial record consisting of 220,000 pages, 100 expert reports, and 64,000 soil and water tests, and a 188-page decision by an Ecuadorian court revealed the obvious. 3 decades of deliberately dumping toxic waste directly into rainforest rivers and streams caused catastrophic damage to the environment and to the people that live there. The trial court stated, natural water sources have been contaminated by the defendant's oil and gas activities. And also, the acts of Chevron are clearly conduct amounting to gross negligence. But Chevron broke its promises to U.S. courts, ignores the damage to the environment, and even now refuses to apologize to the victims. To this day, Chevron is doing everything possible to avoid paying for the damage it caused, shamelessly calling the advocates, the judges, the courts, and the victims, indeed anybody who tries to hold the company accountable for its misconduct, liars. Chevron wants you to believe that 16 billion gallons of toxic waste was harmless, that 900 unlined open waste pits leaking poisons across the land and into the water had no impact. But undisputed, overwhelming scientific evidence, including Chevron's own, shows levels of toxicity in the soil throughout the area are 20 times higher than any safe standard, and sometimes more than 900 times the Ecuadorian standard. Chevron's own audit reports state that spills of hydrocarbons and chemicals were not cleaned up. During an interview with 60 Minutes, Chevron representative Sylvia Garrigo claims that the current contamination level in the affected areas is non-toxic and the oil natural in occurrence.
I have makeup on and there's naturally occurring oil on my face. It doesn't mean that I'm going to get sick from it.
Chevron wants you to believe that even if its 16 billion gallons of toxic waste did cause harm, that it is somehow not liable to the victims. It wants you to believe that it could agree with a state oil company to make its liability to the individual victims, who were never a party to that agreement, somehow go away. But Chevron itself does not believe what it claims publicly. One of its own experts stated under oath that Chevron was never and could never be released from liability to the people it had directly harmed. As part of its public relations campaign, Chevron also wants you to believe that the victims were duped into supporting the lawsuit against their company and that they have no lasting interest in the case. Yet these 47 representatives of a much larger group of victims have endured a 20-year court case standing for the truth. They drew the line, simply asking Chevron to fix what it broke, to restore their land and their way of living. And, despite Chevron's claim that the victims will not benefit, the court gave the victims justice. Chevron was ordered to pay for the remediation of the contaminated soil where the victims live, for the implementation of a potable water system so that they can drink clean water, for a public health system to deal with increases in cancer and other diseases, and for a restoration of the victims' indigenous communities. Chevron's refusal to accept its responsibility is the only reason the victims have yet to receive the benefits of the court's decision. Chevron management wants you to believe that Chevron is the victim of a vast conspiracy that somehow includes every person they harmed or that opposes them, every lawyer, every expert, every judge, every court, and every government official in Ecuador. Chevron's allegations have been heard and they have been rejected, repeatedly. An Ecuadorian appellate court, in its review of the trial court process, found no evidence of fraud, noting that Chevron's allegations of fraud lead nowhere without a good dose of imaginative inventiveness. Therefore, no merit has been given to those allegations. And, in rejecting Chevron's allegations, warned that Chevron would likely extend its abusive claims to foreign jurisdictions, as part of Chevron's demonstrated attempt to deprive the plaintiffs of the rights to which they are entitled in this legal action. Courts in multiple jurisdictions have similarly condemned Chevron's tactics and allegations, fining Chevron for legal action simply meant to harass those helping the victims, dismissing suits as bad faith strategic lawsuits designed to intimidate and silence, and stating that Chevron's fraud allegations amount to nothing more than hyperbole, making a mountain out of a molehill. Not all oil companies deny their misconduct. Even Chevron's competitor, BP, accepted responsibility for its Gulf spill that accidentally leaked 200 million gallons of crude oil into the Gulf, less than 2% of the sludge deliberately dumped by Chevron in Ecuador. While Chevron blames everyone but itself, BP owned up. Chevron has crossed the line and continues doing so by denying responsibility for its misconduct. Chevron's lies are evident, yet the facts are clear.